Sure. Welcome. Thanks for coming. The presentation today is specifically a potential case study, an example case study of how you would apply drone security on a pro stadium. Specifically, we're following an NFL example here. This was a request by Ray Coulomb to try and put in a case study in this track that was going to be emerging technology, something that's new that hasn't been seen before. And so we have a special case here that Damon will explain, which is why we started off with this program. We have a disclaimer because we are going to be talking about certain manufacturers as examples of solutions, but we're not endorsing any manufacturer, any solution specifically. We're going to talk in general technologies, general applications, and security operations accordingly. So we have our little disclaimer in there. Presenter background, myself, Mark Schreiber, Safeguards Consulting. Been in the industry for a while, heavily involved with ASIS, so happy to answer any ASIS questions, gone through many councils and efforts in that respect. Past background is working for very large engineering construction companies, now run an independent shop. So in addition to doing a lot of education initiatives, specifically for ASIS and CISC West and East, I've given drone presentations for the past couple of years, giving that information. So we're reporting this into this case study, and that's going to be my role. Damon?
So I'm a professional stuntman, former hand model, great fingers, but in all seriousness, I've been doing this a long time. Initially, my background was aviation. Never really panned out for me, so I do fly personally. I do have a pilot's license, but PSP, SF3, I do teach for the International Boat Council. I do classes for their various chapters around the country, most recently the Rocky Mountain chapter, talking specifically about Building Code Chapter 10 and the means of egress, and as it applies to fire code. So we talk quite a bit about access control as it applies to firefighters, fire inspectors. And I have been certified in some different various terrorism responses. So, but what we're going to talk about today is specifically about stadiums. I was very fortunate to be involved in a security makeover project for an NFL stadium, specifically, so you can take the cat's out of the bag there, it's the Denver Broncos Stadium. Sports Authority Field at Mile High, although the sign is still up there, Sports Authority actually didn't pay their fee to continue to be called that. The Denver Broncos bought the naming rights back and just haven't decided what they're going to call it. So for now, it's still called Sports Authority Field at Mile High. So within the NFL, every team has security operations of some sort. Vice President of Security Operations for the Denver Broncos is Keith Bishop. Keith is a former player. He was an offensive lineman, protected John Elwood as much as he could, I guess. Still does, as they both still work in the same building. And what Keith was telling me how they attend meetings annually, security meetings, where all the VPs of security for every team gets together. And they specifically talk about their concerns. And at the 2016 meeting, the main concern that they actually spent an entire day focused on, which apparently is rare that any topic lasts more than 20 minutes, they spent an entire day talking about the threats that they feel that they are encountering from drones. Not just in the stadium, but at all our facilities. Lots of these teams have outdoor practice facilities, Denver Broncos included. And they are aware of drones in the area and not sure what they can do about it. There are some local laws that are very supportive. You know, as you know, they're be a hefty fine for operating a drone in certain areas. But not all of them are, and it's inconsistent. Mr. Bishop did indicate that he felt that the strongest laws were here in Texas, specifically in Arlington, where the Cowboy Stadium is, where the offense is heavy enough that it has precluded any issues with drones in that particular area. However, as he says here, the FAA is our big issue in preventing us from being proactive. After spending that entire day at this security meeting in 2016, the last speaker to get up and speak was a representative of the FAA, and essentially told them that everything that you've talked about today does not matter, because everything you've discussed today to mitigate this problem is a direct violation of the FAA. So, to kind of get into it, to see what we might do that isn't an FAA violation, I'll talk a little bit about the facility itself, right? It's a large event venue, seats 76,000 people. It's sold out any given Sunday, so to speak. If the Broncos are playing, that place is full. 76,000 people. They have sold out since 1970. And of course, for the people that are attending these games, they have that expectation of security. You know, they have their bag checked and such, they go in, and there's an expectation that while you're there, you're in a secured environment, right? You don't expect there to be a major incident. You're there as a fan to watch the game, not to feel like you're not in a secure area. However, it is a very porous environment, right? So many entrances, a lot of doors, a lot of ways to get into the facility. A lot involved there in trying to secure that. If there were an issue, it can be very detrimental to the brand value. It could reflect poorly on the team itself, and it will certainly reflect poorly on the NFL. You know, I don't think anyone wants to remember their favorite sports teams being associated with a horrible catastrophe that occurred. So they do have some traditional security, correct? There is a security operations center there, where they have guest relations and greeters who do have security awareness training. Security awareness, correct? They are aware of what they should be looking for in a security environment, and they know who to report it to should they see an incident. Screening, of course, bag checks, basically walking through a magnetometer. There are guest relations, security patrols. They don't typically like to use the word security there at the stadium. There's a sense of maybe things aren't all good if you call security. So they call guest relations. We need guest relations to report to such and such.
Not until we keep coming.
Yeah. And then, of course, there is law enforcement. There is Denver Police Department are on site frequently, as in most stadiums. When you have this big of a crowd, you will have your law enforcement typically on site. And they have two command centers. They have their primary 24/7 command center, which are down in the bowels of the stadium. And they have what they call their game day command center, which actually overlooks, it's in the north stands, which is actually up here, and it overlooks the entire bowl, if you will, the field. They have full video and alarm capability, if you will. They can view access control, video surveillance, any of those things from either one of these command centers. In addition, they also have a connection to the training facility so that they can actually view one another tailor security from both places. Since the Denver Broncos Football Club is just one of several business silos of the Bolin family, not Bolin being the owner of the Denver Broncos. The Bolin family has several silos, which include the stadium management company and, of course, the Denver Broncos Football Club. Because they're under the same ownership, there was no problem in convincing them that their security should talk to each other. So the physical security technology that are actually deployed, right? We do have the actual physical barriers, things to prevent your vehicle from crashing through, driving right onto the field. We know, correct? There are restricted parking areas, security gates, things like that. There is parking for not only players but buses for the visiting teams, things of that nature. Again, we discussed entry screening with metal detection, so that you do have magnetometers. There was access control to prevent people from getting into certain staff and athletic areas. Their access control system is software house. They have Secure 9000 deployed there. It is almost entirely iStar Edge that they have open. And video surveillance. So they do have a very comprehensive video surveillance system. This was upgraded just recently. It is a Vigilon. We initially looked at what they were doing down at the Phoenix Cardinal Stadium and basically doubled what they had there. So in the concourses and in the cameras overlooking the field, all the seats there is very comprehensive, and they do use video analytics to try and detect certain issues that may be occurring. It's kind of hard to use things like crowd gathering in a stadium, right? Because that's what you would expect. But certain areas we do use some line crossing and such. Right? So this is the game day command center. The game day command center, as you can see, it's they have communications and all modalities. They're monitoring of everything here, but importantly is the staff that's here. Because not only do we have representatives from the actual stadium, this gentleman right here is with the Denver Fire Department. Sitting next to him and kind of out of view here are representatives from Stadium Management Company and from the Denver Police Department. Guest relations people over here are people from what they call basically housekeeping, right? So if there is a problem, someone spilled soda all over a seat or something, they get the call. One of the interesting things that they use to get the majority of their information to them is a text line. You may hear over the loudspeaker fans, please, if you see something, say something, text whatever to Broncos 1. I honestly don't remember what the text number is. But those texts continuously scroll here and on her screen down here. If she hears of any problems, she will address the camera operator who's just on the site here to provide them a picture up here of that particular section. And from there, they'll begin directing either guest relations or police department as needed. And they can monitor the situation, watch it as it unfolds here. Well, over here they have static cameras that they use to monitor parking areas, gates, and such. So attendee notifications is a huge way that they stay in touch with what's going on in the field. And then, so we have duplication of communications with the law enforcement. They're sharing the video between here, the primary place downstairs, and of course anywhere else that they want to push it to on site. And then of course, there is a redundant resource for off-site monitoring. We discussed that. That's the field or the training center. So with that, I'm going to let Mark, now we've kind of discussed the background, here's the venue. I'm going to let Mark kind of talk about some of these other issues here. Go ahead.
So, obviously there's 31 stadiums,
Yeah.
right? They're all probably pretty much the same thing in the NFL, but you have bigger venues in college. You go to a Penn State game, you have 100,000 people there,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
And so you have more college stadiums than you do
By far.
NFL stadiums. And I think about 160 baseball games being played,
Yep.
right? Then I think about NASCAR.
Yes.
Which is just immense, just all in itself. Now, I mean, so it's not specific, but they're all probably have very similar, I'm guessing, backup situation, protection, all
Very
that kind
similar
of thing.
physical security.
As to what you described, it's probably not much different from any of those venues, right?
Correct.
At some level. So it's not specific to just the NFL.
That is exactly correct. This is not specific to just the NFL. This just happens to be my personal experience in a venue like this that I wanted to share.
Next question. Does the NFL, I know they have their own security departments, I know the NBA does, I actually met with the NBA one a few years ago. Do they dictate certain standards or expectations at each one of these stadiums?
They do not.
It's interesting.
They do not. No. The NFL, again, they're looking to protect their brand.
Right.
And so they really do leave it up to the individual owners to arrive at their own conclusions to provide their own security.
Okay.
So they do not have a set standard of here are the minimum requirements for an NFL stadium.
Right. Well, but in line with protecting the brand, you would think they would.
I agree.
Right. Not leave it up to the owners' budgets and what's more important to one owner might not be as important to another owner, right?
Exactly.
And same with the NCAA. You would think that in a football arena.
Yeah.
Or NASCAR. So.
And again, it's up to the universities to check their own.
No, I got it.
So again, this is something that is near and dear to me, being a Denver native. So that's why I chose this particular case study.
Right.
So,
Right.
I'm sorry I came in late. I
Sure.
wanted to catch this. Can you speak for my partiness to the destruction is illegal piece? I recently heard this is, if it's a drone, it's considered an aircraft, and an aircraft.
We'll get into that.
destroyed.
So what we've done right now is laid out the environment.
We just kind of, so I just spent this initial session, or initial piece of the session, just to kind of say, here's what we got. And now I'm going to let Mark kind of go from there. So.
Okay.
And to add to your point, we could have set this presentation up, with Damon's background and said, sports event stadium, sports stadium.
Right.
But we wanted to identify that these are ongoing conversations.
Yeah.
This is real.
Right.
This isn't us as consultants saying, this is a concern. This is real clients, real venues.
Yeah, this is the Denver Broncos that have come to me and said, what are we going to do? How do we fix this?
Right.
And we said, let's ask a bunch of consultants.
Yeah.
And to get a feel of what's going on out there.
And so I'll cover the actual technologies and applications to address this type of venue. I'll start off. Did you want?
No,
As we start off, I want to refer that the security principles are always going to be the same security principles, regardless of how technology changes and environments change and risks change. The principles still apply. So we talk about what the 4Ds are. Deter, detect, delay, and deny, or deter, detect, delay, and respond more appropriately. Those still have the same applications, even when we're talking about drone technologies and drone threats. But want to point out, when it comes to a device that can fly 50 to 100 miles per hour, that is smaller than a shoebox in some cases, and can't be heard by humans when it's over 100 feet in the air, to deter and delay is extremely difficult because we're not putting up fences that go up 400 feet in the air, right? We're not throwing up, huge nets like, a golf net and all the these facilities to deny their access. Our play is in the detect and the response side of what we're capable of. And right now it's really legally bound to the detect side, and the response is what's going to actually modify and change as the laws get changed, and I'll touch on that. I'll back up here, and this stadium in particular is even more difficult, more vulnerable to a drone threat because of two main factors. Number one, it's a dome. It's not a dome, it's a bowl, it's not a dome. There is no roof over this, right? So there is no physical protection above.
Right.
And then because of the architectural design, yeah,
Right, Minnesota, they're covered in a lot of this, right.
And then there's a lot of nice architectural effects which create not only an open ceiling, but a lot of these openings on the side of the bowl that potentially could be utilized by a drone. So we're already starting off at a disadvantage outside of traditional security. So we have to start thinking about the physical environment with drones more so than we do with other types of facilities, because typically we stop at the perimeter when we're talking about vehicles, right? We say once you're past the perimeter, now we're really probably talking about pedestrians, which isn't the case with drones. So let's talk about the threat of a drone. Let's cut through Hollywood and media, press, and let's really talk about it as security professionals. What really is a drone provide as a threat? Well, first off is actual trespass. Just like individuals trespassing on property, a drone can easily fly over a facility, intentional or unintentional, and that is a concern for our environment, because if a drone loses command control and loses power or hits something, like as we've had recently happen, or major gust of wind, it could be thrown to the ground and potentially cause some damage. So we're very concerned about where a drone is flying, not just what the drone is doing too. And unfortunately, this is happening all over the place. But there are no laws that specifically support trespass for a drone. They support trespass for an individual or a vehicle, but if a drone flies over a space, it's not considered legal trespass, it's considered aircraft illegal operation.
There's not a ceiling for that?
There are aircraft requirements and ceilings, and drones have to fly below 400 feet. But there is no requirement that specifically says that a drone can't fly over public areas or certain of their own private property like trespass does. So they're trying to institute right now local laws, state laws that restrict that, but the FAA says no. We own everything above 6 inches above the ground up. That's our property. Even though you own the ground and everything below, you don't own the airspace above you.
Are you sure?
Am I sure?
Yeah, I mean, is that absolutely?
That is the current FAA restrictions. Now, as a drone pilot, you are told that you're supposed to stay on your private space. If you work in a public space, you're supposed to notify local public authorities, and you stay out of flight restricted areas. But own private properties, you can't fly without following the FAA regulations. It's not a trespass incident, it's an FAA flight regulation that you have to adhere to. Now, the threats here is obviously you've got potential disruption, damage to employees, users of the space, operational interference, and then obviously the use of resources to address those kinds of concerns. The current event disruption issue we have right now is on certain public events. So in 2013, the German government, specifically the German Chancellor, was having a public speaking event, and they had a drone fly into the event literally within feet of the Chancellor. So it disrupted this operation. They stopped what they were doing, they tried to find out where the drone was, and it flew away. And I think they still don't necessarily know who actually flew that drone. But you could think if that was for ill intent, what that could have done. A U.S. Open tennis match match, they had actually a drone crash into the stadium during a match. So they had to stop, address it, respond, get the drone, and make sure nobody was hurt. Luckily, nobody was, from the reports I read. And then there was an actual, English football, soccer match just back in September that was actually stopped, halted, because a drone flew onto the field during a match, and they tried to capture the drone, and major event interruptions. So clearly, this is an impact, right, of the threat. Is this totally legitimate for NFL or other sports stadiums? Absolutely.
We had, I have season tickets to the UT football game. 2 years ago, we had one fly right into the middle and hover about 30 feet above, just above the camera that's on the guide wires that they can move around. You know how they do that in professional football games. Hovered right above that for the longest time. They did eventually catch the kid that was flying the drone and dealt with him. But, that was, people were freaking out.
Right.
That was literally, what do you do?
Right.
What do you do? And what's the threat? Somebody could crash into somebody and they get hurt.
So exactly. So when it comes to trespass and it comes to event disruption or even operational disruption, this is a legitimate threat to so many organizations. And the problem is when the FAA set up their laws, they set them up for aircraft. And they're thinking, Piper Cubs to 747s, not drones.
Or even
And
helicopters.
unfortunately, drones follow the exact same rules. So when you interfere with a drone, it's just the same legally as you interfering with a commercial aircraft. So the problem is the laws are stacked against individuals, they're against law enforcement, and for the pilots, the aircraft owners, in this case, which would be the drone operators. So that is the area that they definitely are needing to change.
Why is this taking so long to move some legislation here? It's almost like they're waiting for a tragedy to happen. That will happen. Where, that drone video this morning for me, dropping that bomb on those soldiers to me was eye-opening.
Everybody I've talked to felt the same way.
Yeah. And then they talk about swarms, right? I mean, you get 10 or 12 of these things dropping bombs on the stadium, you have a disaster on your hands.
I'll get into that. So let's save that question for the end, and I'll come back with some possible positive news. Obviously, as we said, disruption, direct interruption, indirect interruption. How much indirect consequences are from this? An event stops, what does it do to the vendors? What does it do to the supporting organizations, so on and so forth? Unauthorized broadcasts. How many people do you think would watch a football game coming from a drone with this, special shot of certain players or the coach or something another, and that would just throw the organization, the clubs,
all that's disruption of the business.
Right.
That's a whole different element than the safety of the people in that stadium.
Right. Exactly.
Right. I don't care about disrupting the business. The NFL, so they get an extra 10 minutes of advertising, right? Money. At the end of the day, it's the safety of the people that's important.
And then the next step is, it's not just video cameras. These are mobile transports. They can provide a sensor package of whatever they can carry.
Exactly.
So your video cameras are one thing, and that's within everyone. When we start advancing it, we look at things like LiDAR in this video, right? The amount of intelligence, the data that can be gathered by these sensor payloads is incredible because of the miniaturization of those sensors and the increasing capabilities of this drone aircraft. So this is just an example of LiDAR. We do this all over the construction industry. But this example here of this stadium, you can see the amount of detail that LiDAR can pick up. I mean, these are actual measurements that you can use to do whatever you want, such as figure out how much explosives you need to load in a truck to go through that wall, how much, distance you need to fire a projectile, or vice versa. That is a sign on a lamppost. That is a tree. These levels of detail with LiDAR from a drone is incredible and can be done for almost any kind of operational planning you want. Couple that with LiDAR does not require daylight. It can be flown pitch black, no moon, flying 100 feet where people can't hear it. How much intelligence can it gather on a stadium or other facility because of this technology? So you talk about, whether it's an adversary gathering information, espionage, whether it's different environments, there is a lot of technology. Thermal applications, the thermal, just like a regular FLIR, thermal video capabilities, and then electronic or cyber sniffing. It can bring a package and actually gather cyber intel from those networks, because not only is it mobile, but it also can get really close to the source. So when it comes to cyber espionage, we actually have a proof of concept where a drone was flown nearby a business through the Wi-Fi network, was actually able to sniff, man in the middle, take over printers, send messages to computers on that network, just because of that physical proximity, which was able to take up. So now we're not only talking about we need to secure our networks that are near public areas and public spaces, we need to secure all networks, because we don't know if there's a drone on the other side of that wall or on the roof of the building, so on and so forth.
So it's moved to printer, is that?
Yeah, exactly. It came in, connected to the printer, added it, printed out a message that said, you've been hacked. This was purely a research example. It's not real actual threat, but the capability.
The threat is that
exactly.
The threat that it could come in
right.
and get close enough to a facility and spoof a known printer.
You'd have to have an unsecured network.
No, it was.
If you got a PA2 Wi-Fi network, you're no more secured or unsecured than you would be if you're on ground level.
Right, but as you know, they don't secure every network equally. They look at things. And we as, security consultants, we design for ground level, one level of security, and then when we go to upper levels, we're like, well, nobody's physically near there, so we can allow that. We can allow our critical board meetings to be on that nice corner office window space so they can see outside as they're having those strategic discussions. Well, what if there's a drone outside, either getting video of that or sniffing what's going on in those networks or on their own devices at that point. So we have to understand that the geo-physical location now is collapsed in some of these environments. And then eavesdropping, microphone, eavesdropping, traditional TSCM stuff.
That could be a platform for a laser mic.
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. We don't have that, the next building is, 5 blocks away.
Right.
The device could literally be right outside. And then, of course, physical breaches. You literally could use this to physically breach into an environment and do damage. So, small weapons. This is what we're talking about this morning. Small weapons are legitimate, and it's been proven time and time again. So we have, as was discussed, the ISIS incidents that are occurring right now in the Middle East, where they're dropping mortars, they're dropping grenades. That is clearly happening, and how easy would it be to port it and do it wherever you wanted to in the globe, right? We also have a case in Japan where the individual's family who was affected by the Fukushima nuclear accident actually delivered radioactive sand to the roof of the Japanese Prime Minister's home. Now that happened to be just sand. It could have been another device, but clearly there's these precedents of using drones for ill that we have to consider ourselves. Is this a potential threat for a stadium and environment? And then of course there is the drone gun video you may have seen. Obviously it wasn't ill intent, it's proof of concept, but if you can mechanically manipulate a semi-automatic firearm and shoot relatively accurately, you can essentially develop a higher tech version of this and do some damage. So we're concerned about small explosives, firearms, chemicals, radiation, biological weapons. That's a real legitimate case because the agricultural sprayers that they currently use on drones to spray fertilizer or test chemicals could also contain biological weapons just as easily. It's just about what is it containing.
And you never even know what happened until days later.
Exactly.
If you fly well overhead, nobody even notices it over a stadium. And then
so as we design CBRNE, hardening to buildings, we're worried about the air intakes and access to the air intakes, and we're always concerned about ground level. We always make the recommendation, don't let your air intakes be at ground level, move them 20 feet in the air. That way someone walking by or standing on a truck can't throw something in the air vent. Well, now, a drone just killed what that recommendation value might be. So you have to consider yourself is this a legitimate concern? Through drone attack, how do we actually harden against this, if we can? And then we talk about nation states, and obviously a stadium could be a big terrorist target, right? Serving venues, might be. And there was a case of a sting where they actually captured a terrorist who was planning to transport C4 explosives on multiple drones on an attack at the Pentagon, right? Same transport mechanism, different threat, different damage. So how do we actually protect against this? What are our countermeasures? Well, the great thing to share with you is technology is really here. It's not waiting, it's not lagging. This is a big industry. It is planned to move from right now being a $7 billion industry to a $125 billion industry by 2020. That's the current Price Waterhouse projections.
For countermeasures?
No, for the drone industry. And so the countermeasures are just really understanding that it's not just drone operations, but these drones as a threat is a big factor, and therefore they're treating the security industry seriously. If you haven't noticed, they were present all of the seminars this year, present last year, and actually even started 2 years ago. Hence when I kind of got involved in this. So what we want to talk about first, though, is don't go out and spend all of your money on one item. Look at what you currently have and adjust it accordingly. So the first thing that stadiums can do, and all organizations can do, is address their current security officers, their current staff, their current guest relations capability, and talk to them about drones. Give them proper training about why a drone might be a threat, and how they should detect and respond accordingly. Make sure it's part of the patrol procedures. How many security guards are walking around looking up? Right? They're also used to looking horizontally and down at the ground. Very few of them actually swivel their head up. So we've got to teach them that. We've got to make sure security awareness training includes the concerns of drones, and train everybody appropriately if that's their responsibility. Then we start looking at technologies that we currently have. So many staff now and organizations are given cell phones or have cell phones with authorizations in there. The sensors that are embedded in modern smartphones actually have RF monitoring capability in it. So this one company, DTAC, actually took advantage of that, multiplied it as an aggregate, and crowdsourced the multiple RF sensors with an app loaded on each of those to detect a drone because of the RF signature coming through multiple smartphones in the same geographical location at the same time and triangulate. This is a potential drone.
The RF sensing is because of the cell phone component?
Exactly. So just like it's searching for a cell tower, it's using that same capability to search for a drone signature. Now, this is one of those cases where they took things that were already existing and came up with something as a solution. I would not recommend this as being the sole drone detection solution to a client if this was a real risk. But this is interesting how we're talking about solutions and technologies that aren't brand new. It's something that we already have, and you'll see some of the trend here. One of the things we have to talk about also, like for trespass concerns, is denial and response, is we do have legal capability to identify that we don't want drones on premises. So organizations can clearly make property statements, put up signage, no drones allowed, provide security procedures to document those incidents, and policy specifically to address drones. It's all stuff they can do here and now, do immediately, and it supports their current operations without really any much spend.
Excuse me, does that trump the FAA rights?
No, it's within the legal rights, right? So you basically identify no signage, so then if there's a case where someone has trespassed with a drone, you can say clearly they knew, they weren't ignorant, so on and so forth.
But is it in fact trespassing? Because I thought you were saying earlier that it's...
No, not legally trespassing. You know, they wouldn't prosecute for trespass, but they could prosecute them for potential damage. They could prosecute them for interruptions of operation, safety hazards under the current laws, and it depends on the areas.
Would that only be?
So that's a good point to stop and say, what we're talking about here is an NFL stadium in the U.S. Talk outside the United States, the laws are different.
FAA doesn't apply, right?
Right. FAA does not apply, but there are other rules that may apply. There may not be any rules that apply. So when you're talking about non-U.S. facilities, the technologies may be much more capable in those environments, and the laws may be more supportive or just non-existent to allow an organization to technically even shoot it out of the air in some clients' discussions I've had. Was there a question?
I was just gonna, with regard to the trespassing stuff, and that only is applicable from, if I understood correctly, is if they were physically standing, driving the drone on the property. So if they're off property and they drive their drone into a no drone zone,
Right.
you still can't get them technically for anything, right?
Right, and so what I'm trying to say when I talk about trespass is not the legal case of trespass, but the action of trespassing, air trespassing over your facility, not because you have a legal case to prosecuting as trespassing, but that will hopefully change. Another thing is, how many security officers, guest relations are now implementing body cams or have smartphones that allow them to do video recording? This is something they can immediately execute, right? What we need to be able to support them with is the policies and procedures that's supported by the organization, the technology needs for them to respond in a training accordingly, and then of course, how do we actually bring this video from a smartphone or body cam into our chain of custody? Right, so the VMSs need to be able to support that video coming in, whether it's internal, on their own app, own solution, or external, and bring that in. And luckily, I can say most organizations now are capable of doing that. But it has to be supported by the operations. The next, when we talk about event disruption specifically as a real threat, is actually detecting when the drone is actually flying over. And so the sensors that come to play immediately is radar. So if you have been tracking radar, you've noticed that we're going from military applications to high security applications and now to more commercial applications as the radar is miniaturizing and becoming more compact and also lower cost. And so what happens is these small radar solutions have paired up with video analytics capability, video analytics solutions to actually tie in when they detect a drone. So the radar is picking up the signature of a drone, identifies that it's not a bird, that it's literally a drone signature, communicates that directly to the video, overlays those analytics on any existing video, ties with a PTZ, and provides that, as for alert and response. Interesting to note, the detection signature of these is not traditional. They are designed specifically for drones, so they don't apply necessarily the same as you've done traditional radar solutions. And then we can look at those not just for perimeters, but even smaller cases, like maybe you have a high rise and you're concerned about the roof itself, right? You can apply those in just a simple roof application. You can then expand it with video analytics on high areas, not just for people, but also for drone perches and things like that.
What's the cost of the radar?
Well, so it's going to vary, but we're talking about thousands, not tens of thousands necessarily. In some of these cases.
For a unit that covers a certain span, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so as you aggregate, obviously it goes up in scale, but we're actually seeing, whereas in the past, we would see radars be, okay, you start at 100K and then move up from there.
Oh, okay.
We're now seeing them really all below 10K in a lot of cases for these compact radar solutions.
Okay.
And then another really interesting solution because of drones is how we can actually deny or respond to them. Well, here's the problem. We're in handcuffs right now legally because, as I said before, drones are treated just like aircraft. So just as you would not want to stop a 747 in the air from flying, you can't legally stop a drone from flying. So when we start talking about that impact, we're already breaking FAA laws. And then we talk about the radio control capability of it. We want to mess with that. That's against FCC laws. We're now breaching FCC laws and rules for interrupting communications, because the FCC is going to say, well, how do we know you're only interrupting drone communications and not critical operations or critical communications? So they've actually taken this solution, which is actually more along the lines of our canine friends here. They're training raptors, hawks, to actually catch and return drones. So it started with the Dutch police, and they actually took these falconry experts and had them trained to do specifically for drones. And so they would go and actually capture the drone, land it, or return it back, to the handler. So what is the positive of this is that you're only affecting a drone. You're not affecting a broad spectrum of frequencies. You're not interfering with things except maybe an FAA concern. And then you're bringing the evidence back to you. And it fits within security conditions because we already have canine solutions and we're used to those in the security industry. The downside is this is fringe solution. FAA, we don't know for sure if we have support from them on this. And also it's just like dealing with canine solutions. Animals aren't the easiest to support and operate. But it's interesting.
If Raptor is acting on its own, then maybe you're out of the FAA violation loop.
Yeah. We can play those games.
I think you do. I mean, but how do they protect the Raptor? I can just see one of these bigger drones. Maybe that's a
Bigger than the bird.
DJI-4 right there.
Right.
The bigger one probably
Yeah.
hurt the Raptor could get.
Right. It does.
Little Clippy
it
had a
does-
strap on his claw, so maybe the strap could entangle in the
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
Well, no,
It's still no
so your
guarantee.
point is valid. Number one, larger drones, not what we classify as SUAS, small UAS systems, right, is where this applies.
Yeah.
So it's got to be smaller drones. But then also, what do we do with a Doberman who's getting punched or hurt by an assailant? That's their job. So you have to understand that there is that risk involved
Yeah,
with
that's
that, and you've got to have that culture to accept that within the
Yeah,
organization
that's
for you. So what do we do if we've actually captured a drone? Well, drone designers did not design this to support law enforcement and forensics, surprise. So the problem is the memory is caught in a simple, memory card that is physically glued onto the PCB. So in order to actually access this, you literally have to break this, crack it open, and then remove that memory card safely. So what we want to say is, make sure if you capture a drone, bring in a professional. Make sure that professional is able to dismantle this without damaging the product, and have law enforcement with you while doing that so you can have that chain of custody.
But aren't you also stealing somebody's property?
And then obviously the repercussions that you've done that. So we have this game we play, right? If a bad guy has done bad on your property and you damage what they've left, are you willing to risk them prosecuting you for damaging what they should have been doing already? It's that game you have to play, right?
Reading between the lines of your description of the FAA, it's not necessarily clear that they've actually done anything
Yes.
bad.
Yes.
Like if somebody trespasses, then they've committed a crime, and if they do something in the process, that may be a different situation than people that haven't committed a crime.
Right. And so that's why I say bring in law enforcement. Anytime you're starting to talk about drone denial or response, make sure your local law enforcement is aware and on board. So when it does happen, it's not, oh, by the way, they've already had a discussion and hopefully got that improvement in there. And then, of course, there's actually using drones to help detect drones or mitigate against drones or other threats. And so we have the capability not only to fly those drones themselves, but also tie in the sensor information from the drones into our security environment. So this is a video from Indigo Vision where they actually have shown their proof of concept. And I've heard that High Vision is actually playing with this.
Yeah.
Comments?
Yeah, they I was in that's the corporate headquarters on the bottom. I was there, and they were at As Is, not ISC, at As Is, they showed a medium-sized drone. They had a big boy one over there at the factory, and they have delayed bringing it. I just found this out last week. Bringing it to the U.S. For now. they're not ready, it's not, whatever the reason is, they didn't really get a reason for it, but when you think about it, we're already building the thermal imaging cameras and the video part's done, and I see the drone, I've been trying to get the Chinese to understand this, as an extension of a video management system. It's an extension of my camera system. It can go places where the cameras can't go, where I can't afford to run pipe, and I'm trying to convince them to allow us to work on that. But yeah, it's there, it's just not, we haven't brought it over here yet.
So just like Damon had explained and showed, that video intelligence, that knowledge for their operations is key for many factors. So by enabling, this medium, this transport, to bring video into areas we don't already have security cameras,
right,
or more importantly, quick response to have video and eyes on an incident, right? It's here, it's needed, it's asked for. So what we need is, camera solutions tied as payloads for drones. They don't need to be necessarily provided by a camera manufacturer, but their cameras as being the sensor standpoint, providing, most importantly, the critical data from the drone to a VMS. We can take the video from any standard drone and pull it off and bring it in as an archived, data in most VMSs, but that doesn't give us the telemetry data, the geospatial information about where the drone was when it took that video, at what time of day, and we need that information from the camera manufacturers that are on the drone payloads, from the VMSs, most importantly, to be able to import this in. So whether it's APIs, SDKs, whatever needs to happen, we as consultants, I'm speaking for myself and multiples, David can agree, but we heard the same thing in the morning session, need that here and now on these VMSs so we can support these types of operations. And then we can start utilizing those drones for situational awareness, guard tours, right? Because now we can do guard tours at 50 feet, 100 feet in the sky if we want to. We can have them for response. This is where you're really going to see a lot of immediate value, is response. We can communicate to an adversary. We can use strobes or focused laser light in that as a payload. Sorry?
Dazzlers?
Yes, dazzlers, exactly. If we want to. And sound deterrence. Think about like a miniaturized LRAD.
And you could, wouldn't that have to be an awfully big drone though to support LRAD?
Like our current LRAD. But I'm saying, what could we do if we tried to miniaturize that solution?
True.
Because we're not looking at a crowd, we're looking at an individual.
Right, that's true.
Right, maybe a super high piezo for all we know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is here and now, but I'm saying here's applications that we can look at where now we're sending a drone to respond versus a human, and then
that's a SIP 14 dream right there.
One of the things I was trying to get across to the Chinese is if we could get it. We have geopositioning on our phones.
Yep.
So you have college campuses, and a girl walks out at night after school. It's dark, right? I'm sorry. We have code blue stations all over the place, right? But if I can sell a service, an app on the phone, where if the girl feels threatened, because the bad guy's not standing next to the code blue tower, right? And hit a button, that drone geopositions to her and follows her to her car. That's now a protection. It's an extension of the video system, and it's a revenue stream for the college.
Right. You hit the nail on the head. You combine a need with two existing technologies, just need to be combined to support this platform.
It's already there.
So you're taking existing apps and incident alarm situations.
Well, the drone's documenting what's going on, and then emergency response can come out. Well, and they have on their phone, they see the situation they're getting into when they get there. I mean, you can't. Again, what is the video surveillance system?
That's right.
The documents.
So you're just pushing it out, making it.
Well, I'd say it's a step above that, because what we're referring to is technically called the follow me function, which is drones. Now you can tag a geopositional information on something, and it will follow that individual as they move.
You're deploying a dynamic CCTV camera camera that can go wherever it needs to go.
Exactly, but then you can add audio deterrence, right? So how many of these door intercoms or remote speakers we say, we're there purely just when we see something to yell at that person, hey, you're being monitored, so and you can apply the same thing with the drone application there. So now we're really talking more about the robotic applications, right, of this. This is just the same as the value of a UGV, Night Scope and RAD and all the others out there, providing that sensor package now to help individuals as we want to. And two, what about challenging? What about a drone flying up to someone and saying, we are currently not allowing operations in this area, please identify yourself, and they pull out their badge or facial scan. How much of a deterrent would that be to an unauthorized visitor, right? Now we're talking like science fiction movies, but it's not science fiction. It's here and now. It's just bringing these on this new sensor package platform. Another solution that's coming out is netting. So when we're talking about, maybe cyber espionage concerns and such, we really need to get that drone. Because if we haven't, not only we have a deterrent, we need to actually find out what intel did it gather. Would not let that leave the premises. So beyond the Raptors, they're talking about drones, netting solutions, whether it's by a drone carrying a net. There's a drone that was shown at ASIS in Dallas that actually shoots a net, and the drone was autonomous.
Right.
And then the case down there from OpenWorks is an actual projectile that's shot out from a common type of platform and bringing it down. What it does is it captures that drone. So now you're preventing whatever that data it's captured from leaving your premises accordingly. And this is all geofenced. You can prevent your drones from flying outside of the area. Also, there's been some studies, we'll say at this point, some applications using ultrasonic capability, actually using audio analytics to listen for the sound of drones. D-Drone started with this, but they've since backed away and they only use it in custom applications, and Drone Shield is playing with this too. So there's another layer of sensors we can use to potentially detect and deal with that solution. But then, for the response, we can actually deal with the RF. So the radio frequencies that the drones use to communicate to their command station and the radio frequencies that the drone emits in its operations can actually be jammed. This is an FCC violation though, right? The great thing is you're doing it directionally as the video shows, and you're only affecting that drone that you're pointing at and then disrupting its operations, and then it either lands or goes home, depending on the nature of the drone. But you have to get a special approval to address this. This is currently being deployed in military facilities and across the world right now because of its simplicity in application.
The radar technology you were showing earlier, they can also add a jammer onto that to where it automatically tracks and it doesn't even require human interaction.
Right, and so what we're seeing is just the same as any other security application, especially in high security facilities, we're layering multiple technologies, we're layering solutions so that we can get the assurance of accuracy and response. And then full autonomous drones, right? So now, instead of manual intervention, now we're treating it just like another type of physical security operation. A sensor is triggered, the trigger starts an alarm, that alarm automatically drives a response. In this case, the response is a drone that goes off and flies up and goes to its predestined location. It operates at its pre-configured focus, whether it's aiming a camera or communicating a message or you name it, right, at that specific location. Or it could be, let's go out and do a guard tour on a certain area of the perimeter, or, the sky's the limit, it's just programming, right? But now that capability is there. This is here and now. What's the problem? It is illegal because the FAA in their drone rules does not allow you to fly beyond visual line of sight. Right now they're saying, because of their concern of collisions, their concern of a drone hitting a tree or a building or something, that a human needs to have that larger situational spatial awareness and see that drone when they're operating it, not just be looking at a screen or inside a building, inside a sock. So the technology is here, but the laws do not currently support that.
So you can't have a completely automated, there has to be a human flying it then.
Correct. You currently have to have human visual line of
Human
sight.
override control.
Now there are gray areas where I'm the pilot and I'm looking at the video, and Damon, the human, is physically looking at the drone flying, and there are people trying to play with that, but we don't recommend that. Now, response is a big factor. So we're actually having an event, and there's been an explosion in the parking lot of the stadium, right? What do? Well, we scramble, we throw people out there, because we may not have video on the site. Well, a drone is a perfect application for this. So I'll give you two examples outside of drone stadiums, but outside of NFL stadiums, but you can see where the application is the case. So this shows you good video quality that's capable on this is an existing drone for operations during Hurricane Harvey in Texas. They used a drone to determine an area of damage before they started doing the response, right? So this is a drone flying through the damaged area in Texas from Harvey, and you can see the quality of the video, the intelligence of the video, right? What data are we getting from this video feed itself? This tells us everything we know about the environment prior to entering it, right? And you're looking from close up to long distance away, right? This is our security cameras truly at the value where they should be, right? All this value that we put into these sensors, now making it portable. And then this other example here, this is a poor quality video because it's been decoded multiple times, but this actually shows a real incident. A tractor trailer crashed and caught on fire, exploded essentially on a freeway. The tractor trailer, they knew, transports chemicals, but they did not know what chemicals were on the trailer. It could handle some pretty nasty stuff. So before they sent humans on site, they flew a drone out to review the site. It flew over the tractor trailer, it got the signs of what chemicals it was carrying, and then it decided to go towards the actual cab of the truck. It's gone. All you see left on the ground there is shrapnel, melted glass, melted rubber. It has been totally annihilated. This was carrying some very serious chemicals that no human should be around. See the smokestack there, the exhaust tank?
That's the front of the truck.
That is the front of the truck to the left. All you can see is the carriage beneath it. So this proved to them that by taking the advantage of this mobile platform to gather intelligence, they did not have to harm any humans, endanger any humans, to get an understanding of what response. Now they can hazmat up, bring in the right resources, and decon the facility before they let any others outside of that space. This is just two examples. I mean, there's going to be hundreds of these that come out of the hurricanes we've had recently and other responses. So what we want to do is multi-layer our technologies, just as we talked about. We're going to try and take solutions where we're taking the RF sensors, passive and active arrays, directional antennas, multiple radar solutions, all complemented with video surveillance to really have a good detection understanding. It is not going to be inexpensive. It's going to be costly initially to set these up until we start miniaturizing these and standardizing these solutions. But if the threat is real, we have the technology that's capable to do that. We even have the capability right now with this one solution that's a larger area RF monitoring, but it actually not only detects the drone, it can actually do man-in-the-middle control of the drone. It reads the RF signatures, the RF controls, simulates them, and then immediately acts like it's the drone pilot and then moves the drone out of its space to wherever your designated area, whether move it away from our property or to an area where we can contain it. This is, your pure blend of physical cyber solutions coming into play to deal with this solution itself. It's neat. So, management takeaways. Trespass, make sure that you're aware of the drone overflights. Surveillance concerns, do you have R&D or IP concerns in your environment that can be seen from a drone? Make sure that those are addressed. If you have event disruption concerns, which we do in stadiums, understand how you should respond, what you can do to minimize the impact and ideally detect and possibly prevent that environment. Cyber espionage concerns, going further than that, know where your critical intellectual property is and try and control it with this type of threat concern. Incident response, clearly we can operate much more safely and respond appropriately once we have this intelligence that the drone can provide. And then obviously when we talk about small weapons or payloads, these fatalities, these impacts could be, unforeseeable, hugely detrimental and nationwide, global potentially, if they're allowed to be happening. And then with large, nation-state attacks itself, which potentially could involve a stadium itself, that's where you really have to have a partnership with your DHS, local authorities, and proper response accordingly to support that effort itself. Facility design is being impacted by this. So now we're not talking about just hardening the facilities and where we locate items within the building. We're even talking about sheltering facilities, keeping them from being visible from a drone overflight. Not to mention all the countermeasures that we've talked about today. When a drone flies over, do you have your staff come inside, right? Because you don't want a drone to drop on them or drop something on them, right? These are impacting these operations. Block the visibility, lockdown access control escalation concerns, and survey for dropped objects is common. So again, drones are emerging technology with significant security impact. We want to use them to make them capable tools, not just threats. Unfortunate legislation and oversight is behind the technology curve. You need to make sure you know resources if you're going to implement this, because this isn't one-stop shop. You've got to have partners to make sure this works properly. And it's going to require appropriate planning, implementation, and staffing and service resources. So we're seeing this in the robot environment where security service companies are now trying to support this. We don't know where the drone environment's going to be. Is it going to be security integrators come in and install a drone and walk away? Is it going to be security services companies offer drone services as an option? Or is it going to be homegrown own operations or independent companies? And right now the answer is all of the above, because we don't know. Where it ends up being, we can't determine at this point. They're not proven technologies. Pentagon and White Sands testing stated most technologies are still immature. Sandia Labs testing says that a mix of sensors will be crucial for drone detection solutions. So again, facility design will need to address the threats, and we need to be adaptable. We need to be able to adapt to this technology as it advances. On legal. The great thing is the legal lines are changing. Right now what we're hearing is there's support by the FAA for special waivers. They just gave CNN a waiver to allow them to fly drones for video over event crowds, which is the first ever. And right now we hear that the current administration and support is actually trying to allow FAA to move their ceiling up to a 400-foot level, maybe a 200-foot level, something like that.